23 years old, and I was born with classic bladder exstrophy. My life began in New Bern, North Carolina in 1992. My medical experience started with immediate closure, reclosure, bladder neck reconstruction, and blockages in my ureters. After those surgeries, I was still incontinent. My doctor in North Carolina wanted to connect my ureters to my bowels to fix the problem. This meant I would basically have diarrhea every day the rest of my life. And thankfully, my parents weren't satisfied with that solution and started researching doctors all over the U.S., and it led them to Dr. Gearhart at Johns Hopkins. I became a patient at Hopkins at age 4 when I immediately had surgery for a neobladder created with my intestines and a Mitrofanoff using my appendix. My stoma is located where my belly button should be, and I was told to catheterize every 4 hours. I then became the youngest patient of Gearhart's at the time to catheterize myself in October 1996. This was my biggest surgery. I was in Baltimore for 6 weeks total and 4 weeks in the hospital recovering. I remember spending Halloween there, how hard it was to learn how to walk again after laying in bed for weeks and staying at the children's house with other kids. I also remember my child life specialist and how much I enjoyed spending time with her. After the major surgery, I had 2 more within 9 months, and my dad became very frustrated with not being able to help me. I can't imagine my parents' experience. Honestly, everything I just said about my early years of life affected my parents much more than it did mine. I have only a couple of memories of being in the hospital and never any of being in pain. Since then, I've been happy and healthy, only having 2 minor surgeries, one in middle school and one in high school. The picture on the left is with my little brother. If you look closely, you can see the bags from my kidneys showing at the bottom of my dress. Outside of the times I spent in the hospital, I lived a completely typical childhood. When I wanted to do something, I never thought that I couldn't do it because of bladder exstrophy. It might have been a concern for my parents, but I was never aware. I never felt like I was treated differently than my siblings or my friends. As you can see, I participated in a variety of activities, but committed to soccer and played my whole life on competitive travel teams. The picture of the pool was taken at the end of a year's soccer team party at my house. I'm wearing a bathing suit with a strip down the middle to cover my scar. They are called monokinis and have become much more stylish in the recent years, which has been great for me. Although I didn't consider bladder exstrophy a huge issue in my daily life as a small child, the bladder exstrophy picnics I attended every summer in Baltimore was something I always looked forward to. When I was around 6 years old, I asked my mom, why didn't my brothers and sisters have bladder exstrophy like me? She responded by trying to explain how rare the condition was. I immediately came back with, no, you're wrong. Didn't you see all the kids at the picnic? I never felt alone from the age of 6. I made friends there I still speak to on a regular basis. I even showed my friend Kaylin, she's on the left with Dr. Gearhart at the bottom, at a picnic how I cathed when I was 8 and she was 7. She was currently incontinent, and my parents and I shared my success with a catheterizable stoma, and then Kaylin had her surgery that year. Our parents were close and still keep in touch. I wouldn't have the handful of connections with bladder exstrophy people my age today if my parents didn't make the effort to connect with other families experiencing the same thing. At the picnics every year, we break out into small groups and talk about issues we are dealing with. Talking with the other teenage girls was always a special experience. Most of the talks consisted on the topics of body image issues and romantic relationships. Opening up about our bladder exstrophy specific struggles was therapeutic for all of us. It was the only place in the world where everyone around me identified with me and understood why I was uncomfortable in certain situations. One of my friends told us when people asked her about her scars, she just told them they were results from a shark attack. During my teenage years, I spent as much time as I could with my large group of friends. I was a social butterfly and was always getting into trouble. I was angry with my parents for always grounding me, but I also became angry that I had bladder exstrophy, something I never thought about as a child. One of the hardest parts of growing up with bladder exstrophy for me was wearing a bathing suit in front of my friends. I always hated the moment I had to take my cover up off. It was the only time where everyone around me knew I was different. I wanted so badly to feel the same as everyone else. I didn't think it was fair that I was born with this and my friends were born typical and didn't have a thing to worry about when attending a pool party or going to the beach. I wish I knew then that every teenage girl has self-esteem issues when it comes to wearing a bathing suit in front of her peers, and it is a completely normal part of development. I just felt like the spotlight was on me because I didn't wear bikinis like the other girls did. I continue to struggle with this. This summer was actually the first time I wore a bikini with all of my friends that I have been close with since middle school. I also wish I knew I would have been braver and realized that the anxiety about people seeing my scars is so much worse than what actually happens. Most people notice it for a minute and move on. Some do ask questions, and the more I talk about it, the more confident I've become in explaining it. Another issue that came up for me frequently was the problem of forgetting my catheter. Every time I forgot it or lost it, I would become very angry because I would have to go home or get a ride to my car where an extra was located. I think the anger comes from being mad at myself for forgetting it, but mostly because it was a reality check that I am different. No one else has to worry about if they have medical equipment to pee. They can literally be anywhere and pull down their pants to relieve themselves. I wish I had that freedom. I wish I didn't feel so helpless when I left my catheter somewhere and couldn't use the bathroom until I located one. Looking back on it, I could have avoided many of those situations by placing extra catheters everywhere. Storing multiple catheters in my purse, car, and friends' houses is very necessary and something I'm still learning to do. Telling people about bladder exstrophy was hard as a teenager as well. I've known most of my friends since early childhood or middle school. I told most of them when I was so young. It was before the embarrassment of being different set in. When I tell them now, it's only when I feel comfortable and when I want to share. I usually tell a shortened version, and I'm not ashamed anymore. If anything, I'm proud of how far I've come. I fill them in on how my bladder was exposed when I was born and random surgery stories, but I typically leave out how I use a catheter still. The last new friend I told was an amazement in a good way. We were at a party, and she wanted to go to the bathroom together like girls do, and I was like, whatever, I'll just tell her. I have to pee, and I don't feel like making something up to avoid using the bathroom with her. She thought it was really cool that I could pee that way and was so honored I told her. She knew that I trusted her because I told her, and our friendship became stronger after that night. Once again, the anticipation of sharing information or showing my scars to people is so much worse than the actual thing. I guess that's a general thing you learn as you grow up. Most of the things you worry about never even happen, or they go much easier than expected. I was very lucky to have grown up in a small town with so much support from my parents' friends and my friends. The girls in my group of friends all knew about my condition, and having to use a catheter, I think it made it much easier for me than keeping it a secret. My best friend since we were babies was always concerned about how often I needed to use the bathroom or if I had a catheter or not. It sometimes drove me crazy. For example, we were involved in a car accident when we were 16 and rode in an ambulance together to the hospital. We had both been knocked unconscious and were delirious during the ride. The EMTs were asking us questions like, are you allergic to any medication? And do you have any pre-existing medical conditions? I answered no to both questions. My best friend on the stretcher beside me says very loudly, yes, she does. Rachel, tell them about your bladder. I didn't feel like explaining it at the time, but I guess she was right. Life is challenging for any teenager, but bladder exstrophy kids receive an extra dose. The main point I would like to make is how strongly I believe the best two things my parents did for me was constantly increase my self-esteem and connect me with the bladder exstrophy community. I cannot say enough how confidence building and support from my family, bladder exstrophy friends, and friends at home has helped me cope with every new difficult situation along the way. My dad passed away my senior year of high school. I have a very specific memory of him that embodies how much he built my self-confidence. We took a family trip to the beach when I was young, maybe middle school, and I wore a regular bikini, so all my scars were visible. I remember my dad saying, "That's my girl," and telling me, "I'm so proud of you," with a huge grin on his face. I will never forget that feeling of making him proud for not being ashamed and wearing whatever I wanted. I still think of that every time I feel insecure about anyone seeing my scars. I was raised a brave, confident girl and will continue to be one. I've developed a passion for over my lifetime for traveling and helping others. I lived and volunteered in Peru for 2 months and participated in sometimes dangerous activities, such as the rock climbing picture on the screen. I have found helping others and living life to the fullest is something I have in common with other young bladder exstrophy adults that I've met at the picnics over the years. One of my friends is going into child life, another nursing, and I would like to work with a nonprofit. I would love to be able to work with children with medical conditions and continue to contribute to the bladder exstrophy community. I received a bachelor's of psychology and am currently a foster parent for a nonprofit organization in Houston, Texas. I think each person I've met with bladder exstrophy is uniquely empathetic of others because of our experiences and our overall incredible people. I know that your children with bladder exstrophy will become amazing people as well. Thank you.